Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the best card designs in baseball for 1993. When I put this list together for baseball, I had pulled aside 16 cards, so that gave me the ability to just split it in half and do 8 cards that didn't quite work and 8 cards that really did. And so these are the cards that really worked. And all of these cards, I'm not going to say are necessarily above average as much as they all do in some capacity, they all do work. And obviously not all of them are highly successful, but to me there is a clear top 5, and then there are 3 others that are worth discussing. So it really does work out quite well. And so the first of the 3 honorable mentions that I have at number 8 is Studio. And with Donruss Studio, it was a tricky situation because in 1991 they came up with a great idea. And in 1992, they had to change how the portraits worked in order to make them interesting for the next year. But they realized they needed to really rethink it in 1993 and do something where the card was more distinct and could really grab people's attention. And so the 1993 design was exactly that, where they still have a portrait, but the backdrop is a team logo, sort of. It is either a shot of the jersey of the player, cropped so it's just the logo of it, or the logo on the hat. Now, personally, I like the hat a lot better, and I think that if they'd used that across the entire set, it would have looked a lot better. But unfortunately, every single team had about half of the cards had the jersey, and the other half had the hat. So even the teams aren't completely continuous, and so the set's kind of haphazard. But the big problem that the card has is the fact that the logo behind, it grabs your eye, absolutely, pulls you in, gets you excited. And then it doesn't work with the card. I think the cards would have been more successful if they actually had a logo that was artistically done behind the player. Not necessarily quite a skybox approach, but something more like that. Because where you look with this, the image behind is too busy and it doesn't work as a good backdrop. There's just a little bit too much and it's kind of fighting with it. So for me, when I look at the card, I get excited until I look at the card, and then I just don't like looking at the card as much. And it's a shame because I love the holofoil, the rainbow holofoil on the front. But still, it's still not too bad. It's just that it's all about the excitement and optimism at the beginning, and then there's nothing else afterwards. Because let's face it, if you wanted to get a Nolan Ryan card, this is never going to be the Nolan Ryan card you want to get, very clearly. When I move over to 7, I'm going to the same problem in reverse, which is Score. And for Score, 1993 was the first year that they did the same card design across all the sports. It also would be the last time for a couple of years, but they did do it in 1993. And for the 93 set, what they needed to do in order to make the set work for all the sports was they needed to fix the problem of the success or failure pendulum swing that was so common with all of the card sets that they'd done previous. In football, 1990 and 91 are amazing. In baseball, 1992 is amazing, but in the other sports, not so much. So in 93, instead of trying to make something really amazing and possibly failing, they shrank it back and they made just a straightforward card. It's a basic set, let's just do a basic card, and they were very successful at it. Now, the card is not really going to grab your attention, but if you do look at it, I find that it actually holds my attention and I like the card. Even better, if you put it in a binder, it works well for a whole team. So, I like the way that the card works. But the reason that Score did this was they wanted to really put their energy behind Pinnacle and especially Select, which were the 2 sets that were supposed to be the transcendent sets that really grabbed you and got you excited. Score was supposed to back off and not really be all that special, but I talked about Pinnacle and Select in the worst of sets, not here in the best of. So Score ended up being the best of all the sets, but that was because, again, it's a pleasant enough card, and it's one that once I start to look at it, I actually do kind of like the card. So it does not do the stuff that Studio does, And then Studio does not do the things that this does. So I think this is more successful because it has a longer shelf life in my focus. And then we've got number 6, which is the last one that's outside of the top 5, which is Finest. And the problem for Finest is that this is a card, so this is weird. I love the 92 test set, and I think it's better than this card. But this card it does an incredible job of really showcasing the full potential that Finest has. It has that jewel box enamel-like quality to the design, looks great. The player doesn't fit, but the card does look really fantastic. And then the card back, okay, the card back's horrible. But the reason that I don't like this card is because of the card sets that came afterwards. They wouldn't make a card design this good. Well, even at the, it would take even longer than 1997 to get a card designed this good, but it would take until 1997 to finally have good designs in Finest. So why is that a punishment of this card? Because when I look at this card, all I see is potential. I don't see a great card design because while the design looks good, the player doesn't fit. There is no player where this is the card that is going to stand out in your mind. It just isn't built that way. It's not built to showcase players. And so I look at it and I go, man, when they perfect it, it's going to be great. And they went the opposite direction, and year after year after year it was lousy. The problem with this card is it's not a card designed to showcase players, and that's the problem. As an insert, it would be great. As a test set, it would be great. As a regular set, it's just not. But like I said, those are the cards outside of the top 5, and the top 5 I think are all really successful in varying levels, starting with Leaf. And in the case of Leaf, there were 2 sets. Leaf was initially created for baseball, and so they had the baseball set, and then in 1993 they launched in hockey with the same card design, but it didn't really work for me in hockey. I already talked about it in the worst of, because the bottom design element in hockey to me comes through like a big ramp. The card looks miscut, like there's something missing. You know that it's supposed to be inspired by Ultra, but it looks like a major printing error happened because it just does not look right. However, over in baseball, it actually does. And it does make sense because Leaf is designed around baseball. But I don't know why that same design actually in baseball works out well. It still doesn't look like a cohesive design. It looks like there's something missing. But at least it works as a whole combination on the front, in part because of excellent image selection. That's a big part of it. Strength of the colors is nice, but that card back, I think the card back is the best card back of all of these on this list. The logo, or not the logo, but the image for the city looks fantastic. The design elements down below, the portrait, all of that. And then, oh, I love the holofoil logo for the team. So the card back is extra credit for this card, but on the card front, to me, it just is an exquisite card. I love that. I wish the design was better, but I don't notice it with baseball. And speaking of Ultra, I'm moving into number 4 with, well, 93 Ultra Baseball. And the reason Ultra is here is kind of interesting. So when I was getting ready to do this video, I knew that Ultra clearly was not going to be number 1. Obviously, that's going to be one of the Upper Deck sets. But I figured it would be in the running. And the reason is because I'm a football guy. And so this is one of those cases where when you look at every sport, depending on what sport you focus on, card companies and card sets or card releases are going to feel differently. In 1992, in football, Ultra was lousy, and in 93 it was transcendent. In baseball, in 92 it was incredible, and then in 93, as I discovered, it's boring. I mean, don't get me wrong, the design is still really good on the front. I think it is a better design overall than 1992 to a degree. The card back I think is a little too busy, but the problem when I was going through all these cards for this video is the images all run together and there's no spirit to the cards. That in 1992 the images were very strong and the cards did carry through. Individual cards of individual players carried as distinct from one card to another. In this case, they just all ran together. In fact, I like to pull out star players for these images. And you might notice I'm a little limited on that because these were kind of the cards that stood out the best. That just doesn't work. And so for me, I'm amazed that in baseball, it didn't carry in any way at all like in football. Football is a lot better. Not bad cards. They're still really very nice. But they're not at the level of the top three. And for number 3, I've got Flair. Now, Flair is one of those hate it or love it cards. And I'm on the love it side. 93 was designed, Flair wanted to create just an exquisitely crafted card. You just do everything just right. And that's what they made. Now, I love the thickness of the card. I think it actually does help to make the card seem fancy. That insanely lacquered surface is just fantastic. And the signature gold foil is just fine little details, but it really comes down to image selection, and they did a great job with selecting images. Especially with the pairing, the way they crafted it, they spent so much time. And on the card back, this is easily the best Flair card back. But even on this list, this is the one that gives Leaf a run for its money. The card back looks fantastic. The card front looks fantastic. The problem is, it's not a card that's going to grab your attention. This is a card that is sitting there waiting for you to give it the attention that it needs. But unlike other cards, when you do give it that attention, it really is a rich and luxurious card. That's what I love about the card, is you've got to spend the time with it, and you get rewarded with such a well-crafted card. But another problem the card has is that in 1994, they did the exact same thing, only they forgot to put any care into it, and so it's a clunker in 1994. I mean, the card back is horrible. You can't even read the card number. But when you look at that in 1994, whatever. You look at 1993, 93 is a whole nother conversation, but it can be easy to let the two run together. For me, 93 will always be distinct. I'll always be able to appreciate it, as you can see right here on this list. So now it becomes, obviously I got 2 upper decks left for the top. Which one do I have at 3 or at 2, and which do I have at 1? And I've got an SP at number 2. SP that was the first grown-up card. Now, Finest was a whole nother conversation, and Flair was amazing, absolutely amazing, but it didn't quite have the shock power of SP and Select. Those were the 2 cards that came out and were competing head-to-head as the grown-ups cards. Although, in saying that, I do have to acknowledge, look, I was over in football, and in football, Select actually did have a justification for competing with SP. In baseball, not in any capacity. But when we looked at SP, we knew that SP was the grown-up card, absolutely, and it did all the things it needed to do. The surface is glossy just right. It has that wonderful copper foil. Great image selection. I love the color fade down at the bottom, and I also love the stenciling, which I wish was gold foil or copper foil. But still, even just as gold print, it works really well. The splash of color, which is pretty hokey, but it works well. Everything about this card works extremely well. There's one thing missing, though, and that's character, spirit, fun. And that's what you find over at Upper Deck. The Upper Deck proper set in baseball for 1993, to me, this is the great gold standard for baseball card designs. Now, true, the 1950s had some amazing designs as well, right in the middle of the decade, and I give so much credit to those cards, but the 93 baseball card is the card that always, when I see it, I stop, and I'm so excited to look at it. I mean, it has that kind of strength. It starts off with a white border. Normally, I'm not a fan of white borders because it's tough to make it work. In this case, I don't think you can make it work without the white border. The white border gives a very clean, precise appearance that it makes everything inside seem important. And why this one? Well, that's in part because of what is inside. You have the Upper Deck text up at the top, which works with the logo, but the image selection is so well chosen. It's designed so that the players come through, they read well, and you have heavy saturation. And you combine all those together, and those are enough to make this card just feel really elegant. And then you add that color fade down at the bottom and the signature gold print down there. That combination, whenever I look at this card, I get a smile on my face and I just go, man, that is so cool. This is a card that for me, this is easily one of the top all time. And I'm not sure what else to say, because every time I look at it, I just go, well, yeah, obviously. So I absolutely love it. So that is my list of the best baseball card designs of 1993. Feel free to comment down below about your take, especially either, Flair is going to get a big one. I know Upper Deck's going to get some comments. So definitely leave comments down below about that. And I am going to be doing the other sports as I move forward. This is the first of the 4 sports. So, definitely check out or look forward to that. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And thank you very much for watching.